Buenas tardes, les voy a presentar a las hermanas Sara y Rebecca. Ellas les van a estar contando de su testimonio de su vida.
Hi, my name is Sara Jacobson, and it's my twin sister, Rebecca Jacobson, and we just wanted to give our testimony. And both of our parents are Jewish. When we were very young, our parents were moving, and actually my mother was in the hospital, and my dad was trying to move to this small town in California, and my twin sister and I were only 2 years old, but my older sister, who was 4 years old, was saying, "Daddy, I put everything where we can't find it." And then he said, and then my other older sister, she was the oldest, but she was very sick. So it was only my dad basically trying to do everything. And then some people knocked on the door, and they asked if they could help us move. And he said, "Sure." And then all that they wanted was to bring the children to Sunday school the next day on Sunday. And usually he'd say, "No, we're Jewish, we don't go to churches." But then he said, "Well, if that's all you want, that's fine." And then we went to Sunday school, and the next time my dad decided to come along. And when he came in, someone was praying in Hebrew. They were saying, "Shalom Aleichem." She was saying it over and over. It means peace be unto you all. Shalom means peace, and Aleichem means to you all. And afterwards, my dad went up to her and said, "Where did you learn Hebrew?" She said, "I've never heard Hebrew." He said, "Well, when you were praying, you were speaking in Hebrew." And then she tried to say it, but it takes some practice because you have to say it from the back of your throat. And he realized God was speaking through her with the perfect accent. And then there was a lot of other confirmations that we were supposed to be brought up in that church. The preacher was even preaching about Deuteronomy 6:4, which is, "Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is one." And they teach that to their children when they get up and when they go to bed and when they put it on the front door of their house. He said, and then they were also singing the songs that my dad heard when he was a young child, like the ones "Leaning on the Everlasting Arms." And my father's father used to get a new Model T every year, and he would, my dad would go along with him, and he'd be singing these songs, and my dad realized that he must have met a lot of preachers along the way, because he was a traveling salesman. He went all throughout Colorado and all the western states, and selling encyclopedias. So he must have met a lot of preachers, a lot of Christians. And my dad was wondering, maybe he was a secret believer. And then we were also reading some of the writings from my father's grandfather, who was a rabbi. And he was quoting from the New Testament. He only gave the references when he quoted from the Old Testament, from the Torah. But when he quoted from the New Testament, he just said things like, "We should follow the one whose yoke is easy and whose burden is light." And he spoke about the prodigal son returning home. And he thought, well, maybe my grandfather was a secret believer too. And but they were brought up in a Jewish home, and he came home every Friday night to light the Shabbos candles. And we also have letters. My grandmother was an orphan, and she wrote back and forth to my father's grandfather, who was a rabbi, and he taught her all the Jewish prayers and how to light the candles and how to do all the holidays. And it's very interesting, the letters they wrote back and forth. But so we, my father decided that we should grow up in this church. And actually, we live here in Laredo, Laredo, Texas, but we were brought up in California. And we met the pastor's wife, who's here in Laredo, Texas. It's called the church is called Casa de Israel, and actually the pastor's wife, it was her mother that knocked on our door with some other sisters, and she was a very instrumental in helping our parents as we were growing up. And we grew up with the pastor's wife. and her sisters in California. Then they came here about 20 years ago, and they built a church on both sides of the border called Casa de Israel, or House of Israel. And we decided to come here to visit for about 3 or 4 years ago, and we decided to move here. And we really like it here in Laredo, Texas. And we have a lot more to share. I mean, when my twin sister was 7 years old, she received that same experience, speaking in a heavenly language. And I was 8 years old. Actually, I was almost 9. It was June 6, 1967. But that was a very special day. And I remember saying the next day, I said, Daddy, we need to remember this date and put it on the calendar. He said, honey, we will never forget this day, because it was a very special day. All throughout the world, the Spirit was moving. A lot of people were being filled with the Spirit that day. And actually in Israel, there were supernatural things happening. I mean, it was like Gideon's army. Things were happening all throughout the 6-day war. But it was miraculous what happened. And they actually made it up to the Temple Mount. And an Arab man, all dressed in white, he says, we have been waiting for you for many years. We knew you were going to come. And he unlocked the way to get up to the very top of the Temple Mount. And they got on the radios and told the whole world, we're here, standing on the Temple Mount. And then the whole world recognized that they were the ones to be in charge of Jerusalem. And it was a pretty exciting day, because there was, if you ever read that book about it, it tells a lot of miraculous things that happened with just a small group of people. You know, it was only God that helped them to do that. And but I remember that day, it was raining really hard in that little church in California, and they even had to put buckets where the rain was coming through the ceiling. but I got lost in the Spirit. I remember walking down the aisle to go to the altar. I said, I am going to get the Spiritu Santo. This day, I was determined that I really wanted to have the Spirit. And that day, I started speaking in a heavenly language. And Dad said he had to take me home speaking in tongues, because I couldn't even speak in any other language. And it was a very supernatural experience. And I was never the same after that. But we have so much more we could share. But it's something, when you really yield to the Spirit, then the Spirit speaks through you. But that's only the very beginning. When you speak in that heavenly language, like when I'm playing my guitar, it's like I start playing it, but then all of a sudden it doesn't feel like it's me. It's like the Spirit takes over. You just put your foot in the water, and then the waters part. But it's a beautiful journey when you learn to walk in the Spirit. And then, of course, when I was a little older, when I was 18, I went away for like 5 years. And then I decided I need to go back home to that town where I grew up in California. And I made up my mind that there was nothing out there in the world for me. I knew that all I wanted to do was live for God, because I found out it was just nothing out there. And so from then on, I really had another experience that was my own experience. That wasn't just tagging along with Mom and Dad, but I had my own experience. And it's very real when you come to that point where you just yield your life to God. He takes you on a journey that you can never even describe it in words until it happens to you. You know, in the Bible it says, if that same Spirit that raised Christ from the dead dwells in you, then He will quicken your mortal body, and you will rise to meet Him in the air. And it's just a beautiful experience living for God.
We might need to do another video. If you like the video, please like and share. Thank you.